right.
So just start.
Yes.
Okay. This is the first time reading through it. Okay. When I say the words sex education, none of you probably think back to the most glamorous times of your middle and high school careers. A lot of you probably feel uncomfortable right now. Maybe your butt's clenched a little. I know mine did. But it's exactly what I'm here to talk about today, so relax your butts and hear me out. I've always been interested and have cared about this topic because I always had so many questions about sex as a kid, and I felt like I wasn't allowed to ask them. It was always one of those taboo things that, to the point where I didn't even want my parents to know that I knew the word sex. You would think in schools when you have a question, the teachers would be there with answers or at least try to help you understand more. But for some reason, our country's only answer, dang my voice, I just had milk, answer to all these questions that kids are having is really only taught in schools with this word, abstinence. Before we get into my rant about why the way we are currently teaching sex ed in America is hurting more than helping, let me give you some perspective. So, out of 50 states, only 22 states mandate sex education. So, this means all the other states have the option to not even talk about it at all. Also, out of these 22 states, only 13 require you to be medically accurate. Let me say that again. Only 13 require you to be medically accurate. They would never let that slide with anything else being taught. So why are we letting our country barely teach a subject that is a part of everyone's lives and is literally a part of what makes life? I believe if we taught sex education more comprehensively, we would change not only the way we feel about sex, but how we feel about ourselves. I'm going to share a personal story that I've experienced when I was in middle school and was being taught about sex in our science class. The program was called CPR. No, you're not resuscitating people. It stands for Creating Positive Relationships. So a lady came in with a bag of chocolate kisses and passed one out to each of us. And she said if we waited and didn't eat it till the end of class, we would get a present. She then pulled out cups of clear liquid and had a couple volunteers come up and go around and fill each other's cups with their own liquid. And when they poured the liquid into a different cup, it changed color. So I thought this was going to be like a cool science experiment. I'm like, this is awesome. Look at that. Like, that's magic. But apparently that was not the case. She was like, see, this is bad. When you're mixing your liquids together, there's no way we can bring it back to pure, clean water. And then she went on and said how no one will want to drink this water because it's contaminated and it's lost its value. She then went on and explained how this symbolizes our virginity and if we have sex before marriage. We'll get contaminated and our future spouse will want to have sex with us. She then said if you do decide to save yourself before marriage, and she whipped out this mysterious liquid out of her pocket and she started pouring it and she keeps talking. If you do decide, you won't be contaminated in your partner and you can share your liquid safely. And after she was done pouring it, it went back to clear water. And I was like, this is still magic. I don't really know what's going on. Now, before I go on, I want to say I said liquid so many times, and I'm sorry for that. That was not a good imagery of sharing liquids. Also, our little gift at the end, if we decided to wait and eat our kiss, was a little piece of paper where we got to write our names and pledge that we would not have sex before marriage. Mine is still in my wallet. I'm just kidding. I threw it away. But this style of teaching went on to even my high school career. Now, it wasn't like a science experiment. It was more of a scare tactic that went like, here's a picture of gonorrhea. Don't have sex before marriage. And, that's a little frightening. But where did I go? But it only taught me what gonorrhea looked like, which is useful. But now I'm not expecting schools to be out here like, here's some condoms, go crazy, because I do believe abstinence does have value. And it is a decision like me and others are choosing. But I do think there's a high value in sex, and sex has an impact on our emotions and feelings, and I don't think it should be taken lightly. But when we teach something where it only shows one side in perspective, we miss the whole picture. When we just teach abstinence only, the kids who have been assaulted or raped or who hear this message, like the one I heard in middle school, will believe something is wrong with them, it was their fault, and they lost their value. Kids in middle school confused about their sexuality and thinking they might be gay might not even hear the word homosexuality in the classroom. The language and the way we say things impacts how we feel. If we're only using heteronormative language in the classroom, the kids with gay parents or kids who think they're gay might not even think they're normal. There are actually 8 states right now that are considering a law that limits what you can say about homosexuality in schools. Also, it wasn't until college when I noticed people teaching what consent was. Consent is definitely something you should learn, like in your everyday life as a kid, because it applies with a lot of things, but definitely it applies when you're talking about sex. So not only is abstinence only teaching anyone things, not teaching anything, anyone that I can't. So not only is abstinence only, that's weird, not teaching anyone things they need to know for the real world, it is sending damaging messages and showing and throwing real issues under the rug. That's all I have right now.
Okay. So what do we think about adding from there?
I want to add. I might, because I know another girl's literally talking about the same topic, so she's going to be talking about like how when we only do abstinence only, it actually like in those states they actually have higher like teen pregnancy and STD rates. So I might mention that. I also wanted to somehow show like an example of another way that like there's a lady named Shelley Donahue that's very like abstinence only and like how toxic her way of teaching is, and she like compares people to like pieces of gum. So I have like ideas. I just need to like
put it together.
First draft, so it was just kind of like whatever I thought of first, and that's how I have it planned out right now.
Okay. What are you thinking for our visual aid on this? You do a PowerPoint?
But I'm gonna make it look professional. So I know when I'm talking about like the states, I want to have a picture of like all the states, and then have those states like a different color, and then shows like which states. I feel like my story is a little confusing, so maybe having some. Like,
I was thinking maybe bring in like some clear cups with water and like some food coloring or something. And like doing it. That's what I was thinking, like doing it in front of.
About that, but I don't know how she did it.
As you're talking about it, well, just maybe like some food coloring or something. I'm sure you could Google how to get food coloring back to clear.
But then when they mix them together, they turn to different colors.
I'm sure if you Googled it, there's like some science trick on YouTube. But like I thought maybe that would like as you walked us through like what she was saying, like that would really bring it out. It caused them to take their eyes off of the PowerPoint and like focus it on you for that story. Yeah. I like how you're gonna have the states and everything. I'm trying to think here.
I know there's other ideas
I know kind of throughout you kind of gave ideas for what you would do to like add to the sex ed education now. You might make like a whole like area of it, like just one chunk, like here's how we should improve it. Like here's what we can do going forward to fix.
That was another thing I wanted to do, is be like the call to arms or whatever.
Yeah, like here's what's wrong, here's what we can do to fix this. So we have the personal story, and you said you're gonna add another example from the one lady, right? Okay. Do you have any ideas on what you're gonna say, like when you're in your area, like how to fix it, or like the call to action?
I might just like even look up what other schools are doing that are more like comprehensive, and be like, this is what these schools are doing, and it's so much better.
A little more not medieval.
Yeah. I don't know exactly. Like I know I want to do that. I don't have that data, but I want to have something like that.
I don't even remember having sex ed in high school.
Ever?
Like we had a health class that we covered a week on in sex ed, but we didn't.
I have a funny joke I was gonna add. This actually happened like 2 weeks ago, so I'll just tell you right now. So we were around. I was like my grandma, my sister, my brother-in-law, my friend Jay, and my friend Lauren and I. And we were talking about the hymen. I don't know if you know what that is, but no one in the room knew what it was. I was like, Jay, do you know what the hymen is? He's like, oh, like the maneuver, and he thought I meant like the Heimlich maneuver. I'm like, no. I'm like, this is sex ed right here. The hymen maneuver. Anyway.
I like that. You can put that in the intro somewhere. I'm not sure where at exactly, but somewhere to like kind of lighten the mood to start.
I'm just writing.
I like kind of writing it as we go here.
Yes. And if you want, like for the line by line, if you just want to look at what I've written down, so you can be like, oh yeah.
I have like the sections pulled out that I've been kind of looking at. I don't know if you want to like keep adding like as we go. You can kind of like try to talk through it and see what you like, what you don't like. Like, If you have anything like that you want to add, like you were thinking about adding.
Did anything like stand out to you where it was like that was weird? Like
well, I mean,
she's
kind
a
of
word that
you stood like this a lot, but I feel like that's because
Yeah.
you're standing there reading
That's
off of
like-
it. You don't have your presentation by you, so.
Yeah.
No, I mean, other than that, it flowed really well together. Like I said, you need like the solution, like how we're gonna fix it. You talk about the problem, and you need that like a quote in the end or something that's like kind of like pulls it all together. Like, you know, I don't know many sex ed quotes personally.
I don't know.
But kind of like just a quote to tie it all
Yeah.
and bring it all up in the big picture.
I feel like since I procrastinate and I do have a week, I'm gonna be like, oh.
Yeah, I'll do it on next Thursday.
I'll put it in there. But I will.
Yeah, if you want to go through the line by line.
Okay, just start at the beginning.
Yeah, just start at the beginning, and I'll kind of.
Okay, just say stop.
Will do.
So, when I say the word sex education, none of you probably think back to the most glamorous times in your middle and high school careers. A lot of you probably feel uncomfortable right now. Maybe your butt's clenched a little. I know mine did. But that's exactly what I'm here to talk to you about today. That's exactly what I'm here to talk about today. So sit back, relax your butts, and hear me out. So that's the intro.
I like that. I'd take out. That's what I'm here to talk about today, though.
Okay. What else?
I would find another way to. I get where you're coming with that, but I'd find another way to word it. Because that's kind of like when we were doing like our pitches.
I'm going to talk about this today.
Yeah, she's like, do not say this. So I would take that part out. I like the sit back and let your butts relax. That's a good humor statement for it. I would find another way to word that little first part of it.
When I put that in, I was like, maybe it's like discreet enough where it's not like, this is what I'm doing. They called it out, and I was like, damn it. Okay. Next slide. I've always been interested and have cared about this topic because I've always had so many questions about sex ed as a kid, and I felt like I wasn't allowed to ask them. Let me make this bigger so I can actually read it. It was always one of those taboo things to the point where I didn't even want my parents to know that I knew the word sex. You would think in schools when you have a question, the teachers would be there with the answers or at least try to help you understand more. But for some reason, our country's only answer to all these sex questions that kids are having is really taught in schools with one word: abstinence. And I'm going to have the word abstinence.
Yeah, I'd give it a little pause there and like really put the emphasis on that. No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
No.
Before we get into my rant about why the way we are currently teaching sex ed in America is hurting more than helping, let me give you some perspective. So out of our 50 states, only 22 mandate sex education. So this means all the other states have the option to not even talk about it at all. Also, out of these 22 states, only 13 require you to be medically accurate. Let me say that again. Only 13 require you to be medically accurate. There's no way that this could slide in any other thing being taught. So why are we letting...
I'm going to pause you real quick. I'm going to pause you real quick.
Okay.
Going back, your line, this is hurting more than helping.
Yeah.
You don't talk about it like where it's helping much. You do a lot of talking about the hurting, and we're going to talk about the solution. But you don't talk about what's good with the current state. You could maybe add in like something that they're doing well, or I would just say, let's talk about how it's affecting, how it's affecting the outlook on sex and the youth, or something like that.
Let me reread it and then say what you said. Okay. Where did I put it? Oh, okay. Before we get into my rant about why the way we are currently teaching sex ed in America is hurting more than helping, and give you perspective. So what?
Yeah. So I'd take out because you talk a lot about how it's hurting, and you said you might add like how we can fix it, but you don't mention like how it's helping.
Okay.
Somewhere throughout, like you could add like something they're doing well, or like how it's currently, what something good currently is about the way they're teaching it. Or I would just find a different way to word it and talk about how they're hurting or how it's hurting society's views on it. Either one would be fine. Like if you needed more something to fill time.
I might, because the way I said it, I was trying to be like they think it's helping, but it's not. But I see how that could be like that. So I might.
You could rephrase it like that, like how they think they're helping us, but truly they aren't, or something.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
Yeah.
coincide with anything else being taught. So why are we letting our country barely teach a subject that is a part of everyone's lives and is literally a part of what makes life? I believe if we taught sex education more comprehensively, we could change not only the way people feel about sex, but also about themselves.
Okay.
And then I'm going to share a personal story that I experienced when I was in middle school and was being taught about sex in our science class. The program was called CPR. I added that one part. Should I just explain what it is and not be like, it's not resuscitation?
No, I like that. It kind of keeps, because you kind of have like a humorous kind of vibe to the beginning, trying to lighten the mood.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those topics that could make people like a little itchy. So I like that you're keeping it lighthearted. I would keep that in there. Like, keep the lighthearted.
So, like, I did that, and I'm like, that was kind of stupid.
Yeah, keep it going throughout.
Okay. The program was called CPR, and no, we were not resuscitating people. It was stood for creating positive relationships. So a lady came in with a bag of chocolate kisses and gave one to each of us. And she said if we waited and didn't eat it till the end of the class, we would get a present. You know where this is going. Then she pulled out cups of clear liquid and had a couple volunteers come up and go around and fill each other's cups with their own liquid. And when they poured the liquid into a different cup, it changed color. And I thought, whoa, this is like some magic, like science experiment. But the lady informed us that this was bad. She said, now that we mixed all our liquids together, there's no way we can bring it back to pure, clean water. She went on and said, no one will want to drink this water because it's contaminated and it's lost its value. She then went on and explained how this symbolizes our virginity, and if we have sex before we're married, we'll get contaminated and our future spouse won't want to have sex with us. She then said, but if you decide to save yourself before marriage, and she whipped out this mysterious liquid out of her pocket, she started pouring it. She said, you won't be contaminated, and you and your partner can share your liquids without worry. And then after she was done filling it, it went back to clear water. So still, I was mesmerized with the experiment. I still didn't really know exactly what she was saying. But before I go on, I want to say I'm sorry for saying liquid so many times. That was a lot.
Did the Hershey Kiss ever come back?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Also, our little gift at the end, if we decided to wait and eat our kisses, if we decided to wait to eat our kisses, we got a little piece of paper where we could write our names and pledge that we wouldn't have sex before marriage. And I still have mine in my wallet today. Just kidding. I threw it away. But this style of teaching went on to even my high school career. No, it wasn't like a science experiment with cool water and liquids. Sorry, one last time. It was more of a scare tactic that went like, here's a picture of gonorrhea on a penis. Don't have sex, which is traumatizing, and it didn't really teach me anything except he was like, okay, which is traumatizing. Except now I know what gonorrhea looks like, which I guess is useful. Now, I'm not expecting schools to be out here like, here's some condoms, go crazy, because I do believe abstinence does have value. And it is a decision me and others are choosing. I do think there's a value in sex, and sex has an impact on our emotions and feelings, and I don't think it should be taken lightly. But when we teach something where it only shows one-sided perspective, we miss the whole picture. When we just teach abstinence only, the kids who have been assaulted or raped who hear this message, like the one I heard in middle school, will believe something is wrong with them, it was their fault, and they have lost their value. Kids in middle school confused about their sexuality and thinking they might be gay might not even hear the word homosexuality in their classroom. The language and the way we say things impact how we feel. If we only use heteronormative language in the classroom, the kids with gay parents and or the kids who are gay will think they are not normal. There's actually 8 states right now that are considering making a law that limits what you say about homosexuality in schools. Also, it wasn't until college I noticed people teaching what consent was. Consent is definitely something you should learn in your everyday life as a kid because it applies to a lot of things, but it especially applies when you're learning about sex. So not only is abstinence only teaching, so this is so weird. So abstinence, how do I want to say this right now? So not only is abstinence only not teaching in one thing. So abstinence only is not teaching people things they need to know in the real world. It is sending damaging messages and throwing real issues under the rug.
Yeah, let's work on that line real quick. Abstinence isn't teaching people things they need to know in the real world. Abstinence only teaching. Abstinence only. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Are not
teaching.
Preparing.
Teaching only abstinence.
Teaching only abstinence.
Yes.
Okay. And that's all I have right now.
Okay. So what solutions do you think we could use for like to fix how sex ed's being taught?
Kind of like what I've been saying about how they don't
Teach more than abstinence.
Yeah, like it's just I don't know how to. I guess I can give examples, but
Like talk about different birth control methods and stuff like
Yeah.
that, or
and just kind of because it's very like fear mongering. So I think
Yeah.
if it was just more like this is natural, and here, like I think
stop using fear tactics and try to scare people
Yeah.
away from it.
because I feel like it kind of makes it more of like the forbidden thing. 'cause
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so bad, we shouldn't. So then it just makes people want to do it even more, which is what they have found.
Okay.
Like I promise I will have actual like solutions. I just
No, you're good. You're good. I'm gonna pause this for 1 second because I need to go on Box and pull up the paper. Okay. You want to try it without the laptop? Pretend like there's a power. Come on, you
wrote
do.
it today.
You've given it twice now.
I promise you, I will try. But it won't
You got
be
this.
good.
I promise you, you got this.
No, I don't.
You do. I have faith in
I
you.
don't. I don't even know the first word. Okay, I'm gonna see how far.
Okay, let's see how
I
far you can
could be
go.
like,
It's all right.
This is it. Okay. Okay. When I say the word, when I say the word sex education, none of you probably think. When I say the word, none of you probably think back to the most glamorous times in your middle and high school career. A lot of you probably uncomfortable now. Maybe your butts clenched a little. I know mine did. Yeah, that's it. That's my tongue. My butt clenched. Oh, but I can't say that that's exactly what I. So something else. So sit back. I'm looking at you. Relax your butt and hear me out. I promise I don't know it.
It's all right. You keep going. You're gonna have this part memorized. One less thing you have to do this week.
I still think it. Okay. I have always been interested and cared about this talk since I was a little girl. What did I say? Because I had so many questions that I felt like I couldn't ask. And I felt like I wasn't allowed to ask. Okay.
When you say wasn't allowed to ask, are you referring to teachers, parents?
All of it.
All of them?
I felt like I wasn't allowed to ask them. It was always one of those type of things. Okay. It was always one of those.
You might define who them is and that, like, just tell them.
Well,
I feel like I couldn't ask anybody.
I've always been interested in how cared about the topic because I always had so many questions as a kid. I felt like I wasn't allowed to ask them.
I'd just say ask anyone.
Well, like ask the question.
Okay, ask them. Okay.
Ask them to anyone.
Yeah, I'd ask anyone.
I wasn't allowed to ask them to anyone. It was always one of those taboo things where I didn't want my parents to even know that I knew the word sex. And when you think of school, you would think teachers answer something about how teachers answer questions. You would think in schools when you have a question, the teachers would be able to provide you answers or at least help you understand something better. But this is not the case But for some reason, our country's only answer, I'm just going to leave it up, to all these sex questions that kids are having is really only taught in one way, with one word, abstinence. Before we get into my rant about why the way we are currently teaching sex ed in America, I'm looking at it now, is hurting.
All right.
Let me give you some perspective.
When you say hurting there, kind of give like you're hurting, like make a face or something with it, like a pain.
Is toxic. Before we get into my rant about why the way we are currently teaching sex ed in America is toxic, let me give you some. Is that good?
Yeah, I like that.
I will have it down.
But I know you will.
Put me on
you got
the spot.
I
did. Do it today. only 22 states mandate sex education, so this means all the other states have the option to not even talk about it at all. Also, out of those 22 states, only 13 have to be medically accurate. Let me say that again. Only 13 are required to be medically accurate.
On that, I would really put emphasis on it. Like on the second time around, only 13.
Only
13.
13.
Yeah, put that up there. 13.
Should require you to be medically accurate. This would not.
I'd be
slide.
over the top with that part. Over the top with how ridiculous that is.
I put on a doctor.
Yeah.
Medically accurate. I just act up. I'm gonna bolden that. They would never let this slide with anything else being taught. So why are we letting this slide? I'm making it up. Why are we letting this slide with something that is literally a part of everyone's life and literally makes life? It makes babies. I believe if we taught sex education more comprehensively, it would change the way people feel about sex and also themselves.
How are we doing that? Let's go into it. How are we teaching it? You said more comprehensively?
Yes.
Okay. That can, whatever you put there, add into your solution too. Like make it, this can flow into a solution.
Okay.
You're talking about how.
I didn't know if I should I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, already, I believe if we taught sex education more comprehensively, we could change not only the way people feel about sex, but also themselves.
Now, how are we doing that?
What you can do after I tell about all the crappy stuff, or
okay.
Before. Because this is kind of like
you can tell about all the crappy stuff first.
So yeah, I would kind of like this is what I'm gonna be doing, but before I do that, personal story. This is all bad crap. Here's what we can do.
Yes.
So is that fine?
Yeah. Okay. Something else you could do to just add a little to it. If you brought a bag of Hershey Kisses in, put one on everybody's desk and be like, nobody can eat one until I'm finished.
That's funny. Just like before I even start.
Yeah, before you.
You'll understand.
You'll understand.
You eat these, you're going to hell. Okay.
Exactly. And then if you did that at the end, you could like tell them to all get out a little piece of paper and sign it. But instead of signing up to say you'll be abstinent, sign up to say you'll be part of the solution and not maybe not the problem.
It's like everyone look under their desk.
Like tell everybody, okay, I need everyone to get out a small piece of paper and do not touch your Hershey Kiss till the end of class. Right before your story.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna share. I'm gonna do this when I'm talking. I want to share a personal story that I experienced in middle school. I feel like I forget what words are when I can't do them. When I was being taught about sex in middle school in my science class, the program was CPR, and no, we did not resuscitate people. It's
actually, when you're saying no, we did not resuscitate
CPR,
people.
We did not resuscitate people. It stood for creating positive relationships. So the lady came in with a bag of Hershey Kisses. Look, now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And gave one to each of us. And she said that we should wait and eat them when she's finished at the end of the class. And we would get a present. Then she pulled out a cup of clear liquid and drank it. Just kidding, I don't know. And had a couple volunteers come up and pour each other's clear liquid in the cups. And when they would exchange the liquid, same liquid, it would change a different color. And I thought this was cool. I thought this was going to be a cool science experiment. Like, this is wizardry. Don't say wizardry. But the lady informed us that this was actually bad. She said that this symbolizes when we mix our liquid with. Wait, how did
it symbolizes.
She said, now that we mixed all our liquids together, I'm yelling. other. There's no way we can bring it back to pure, clean water. She went on and said, now no one will want to drink this water because it's contaminated and it's lost its value. She then went on and explained how this symbolizes our virginity. And if we have sex before marriage, our spouse will not want to have sex with us because our liquid is a different color. That's not how I said it. She then said, but if you do decide to save yourself before marriage, and she whipped out this liquid and started pouring it in the cup that we used. And as she was pouring, she was saying, if you do wait, then you and your spouse, you and your partner can share liquids without me worrying. And then the water went back to this perfectly clear glass of water. I still don't know how she did it to this day. Now, before I go on, I want to say I'm sorry for saying liquid so many times. That was a lot. Also, our little gift at the end, if we did decide to wait to eat our kisses, which I'm hoping all of you decided to do, we got a little piece of paper where we could write our names. And pledge that we would not have sex before we were married. And I still have mine in my wallet to this day. Just kidding. I threw it away. This is like sad. I don't know it. Do you want to go? What's the next thing on your list?
I don't have another thing on my list. My next thing I was going to ask you, like, where do you want, like, what part of what you already have do you think needs work? Like, what part do you think? Or what do you think would be most beneficial to work on next? Do you want to, like, work on trying to add more? Do you want to work on something you already have done and trying to crystallize it?
Even though it was a personal story, I'm mad that I can't say it. Like I'm like,
Just get it out.
Even though I literally like wrote it out.
With it being in the middle, though, it'll flow really well, like referring back to it at the end. Like if you have them get out a piece of paper and sign to be part of the solution instead of.
I feel like I had all these things where I'm like, I don't know how I want to do this, and then I should have written that down. What's the next thing on your thing? I feel like I've talked a lot, but
Modeling, which I've kind of, said, but I haven't actually done. Encouraging, which obviously I think this is a really good, and I think it's going to be humorous, but it's going to be very beneficial to the class. We did the line by line and general feedback. Developing a plan. We can do that's what I was, going at now. Okay, do you have any more goals or hopes? I guess I forgot to ask that in the beginning.
I want it to flow well. I really I just need to keep working on it, like you said, because once I have it down, I feel like have I ever had a talk where I don't use flashcards? I know I have, but it wasn't that good.
Did you happen to look at the clock at time-wise where you were at? I didn't.
No.
I obviously didn't see it. Because I'm guessing you're right around 4 to 5.
Yeah, when I was timing myself, it was like 6 if I was going really slow. But
Yeah. So I know we talked about maybe adding the solution or maybe adding something that they're doing well. I think you had bolded it to rephrase that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Any other things you think about adding to it? Obviously a conclusion. You said maybe another person or another example. What was the example you were thinking about adding?
There's a couple. So we have the Pam Stencil anti-sex program where she's very intense and
She one of the teachers at your school then, or she just coming in?
This was I saw her online.
Oh, okay.
And I've heard about her, and she's just no. Shelley Donahue, which is also a crazy lady that does.
Sex
uses
ed
a
online.
piece of tape.
Oh.
Where it's it loses its stickiness, and no one will want to use it. And then we have, this is just little research things I found. So there's a story, which this goes into assault survivors. So Elizabeth Smart was assaulted as a kid, and then when she heard a piece of gum metaphor where it was you're like a piece of gum when you have sex with your mirror, she was I'm gonna chew a piece of gum, even though she literally like. So just showing how damaging that was for her.
Yeah. I feel like another story or like another outside example would definitely be very beneficial.
Yeah.
Because I feel like obviously yours is a personal experience, but I feel like adding more real world context, like an outside example to it too, showing like this isn't just a problem here. This is a problem everywhere. This is a more widespread. And like you said, that tape one, something you could actually, get a piece of tape off the desk and obviously show.
Just how like the teaching reinforces like gender stereotypes or culture.
You could go into that too, like the stereotypes around sex for high school boys versus high school girls. That could be a very big point. It 100% is.
So I just like I wasn't prepared today, so that's why I don't have.
Oh, you're fine.
I promise. Ashley. Also, this is when I was a coach. It was hard for me to find a minute where I was doing one of those things. So just make sure you also talk or like have evidence of doing each thing. So I was like, I don't know. I complimented her throughout it, so I don't have like the perfect minute of me complimenting.
Actually, I have notes too if you need them. If you get this far. She probably. I feel like the hardest part's gonna be writing down the time when I was modeling, because I feel like I was back here telling you what to do, but I didn't actually go up and.
You could do.
But I mean, I'll be
like, do this.
But also, like, you're still on the computer, so it's hard for me to know like what you're actually planning on doing.
Yeah,
So
it's my bad.
I don't. No, you're good. Which
I guess I could be like, this is where I could go through and be like, I'm gonna do this here.
Yes.
Which I kind of was doing.
Do you have anything that you do during presentations that like unconsciously that you start to do?
Like this a lot.
Do this a lot. Mine, I didn't realize I was doing it until the other day, but I paced a lot. I went back and forth and stood like this. I didn't realize it, but I stood like this the whole time.
Move a lot. Like I might like distribute my weight.
My person's in the back, in the room, just yelling, "Stop pacing!" I'm like, okay. There's no PowerPoint here. I don't know what to do. It's awkward.
Yeah. Design tips?
Not a ton. I'm not great with making PowerPoints. My partner helped me. I kept mine fairly plain though, and because mine's don't be an asshole, obviously. So I put "don't be an asshole" on every slide. And every slide I have asshole getting a little bigger. So I wanted something just to kind of underline, but I wanted it to be like there throughout. So I wanted my main idea there throughout, that they see it's there, and that's what I'm tying it back to. So I don't want obviously you don't want to put abstinence there throughout, because you're trying to avoid that.
Abstinence, and then I feel like a lot of TED Talks that's very simple.
Yeah, like mine was like most of my slides are just one word.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
That's what I'm hoping to do. I don't want like too much.
When you talk about the 8 states, you might list them off too. Are they? Do you know if are they relatively close together?
They're
all
Southern.
Southern.
Not surprising.
You could make a point to point that out.
I don't want to be like, Southerners are stupid.
I don't want you to be like, it's only a problem down south, but.
No, it's literally there's like this where is it? It shows every state's like what they do or don't.
And you talked about the 22 states too.
Like, it's so funny to see like all of the states that are more like terrible or like
out west is just all 4. But yeah, I feel like if there's one that's like really widespread, I talk about how widespread it is, talking about, this isn't just a problem here. This is nationwide. It's not covering just one little area of our country. This is something that the whole country can stand to benefit from. This is something that needs brought up on higher levels. And when you do that, I'm going to stand up here.
Yeah, show your model.
When you talk about how widespread it is, I literally go widespread, like make it wide, like a little over the top with that. Kind of like your one where you're going over the top with. I don't remember what it was now. I think I have it written down. I don't. There's one in the beginning. I told you.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, 13 required you to be medically accurate.
That one when you repeat it.
Like third.
Like I'd get very
1, 3.
go one word by word with it, like 13. Yes.
Just kidding. It's the ugly 3.
But yeah, I'd make that very well known that just 13. It does. Do you want to run through it one more time? You have anything you want to try to add to it and go through it one more time, or anything that you want to change
Let me
before?
see what I wrote down.
Okay.
Let's see if I can add it. How should I add the high maneuver joke? I don't know. Maybe at the end. Maybe I'll do that.
That you could do that, kind of like lighten the mood after you go through that big rant of. Because I feel like it's gonna you're pretty lighthearted in the beginning, and you're gonna hit a serious note at the end. When you're talking about what fixing it. We're talking about the issues with it. We're gonna fix it. I feel like it's gonna hit like a serious moment then, and then you can bring it back to a little bit lighthearted at the very end with the joke.
Yeah. I need to look up what the 8 states are.
I'm not shocked that they're all southern states, but
really fits the stereotype, sadly. Okay. A lot of it I'll just have to add when I add more. So I'll just run through it.
okay.
And not try to look at it, but also looking at it.
Okay.
Everyone looking here every time.
Well, the one person looked because you yelled about seeing pictures of gonorrhea.
Gonorrhea, come and have sex. Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to start like that. When I say the words sex education, I don't know why I did this. When I say the words sex education, none of you probably think back to the most glamorous times of your middle and high school career. A lot of you probably feel uncomfortable right now. Maybe your butt's clenched. I know mine did. But nope, but I'm not saying that. But sit back, relax your butts, and hear me out. I'll just say that. I've always been interested and have cared about this topic because I had always had so many questions about sex as a kid. And I felt like I wasn't allowed to ask them to anyone. It was always one of those taboo things to. Sorry. This is weird. Always one of those taboo things to the point where I didn't want my parents to even know that I knew the word sex. You would think in schools when you have a question, the teachers would be there with answers or at least try and help you understand more. But for some reason, our country's only answer to all these same-sex questions that kids are having is really only taught in schools with one word: abstinence. I might not do that, but I'll be like,
yeah, I would definitely motion to it.
Abstinence. Before we get into my rant about why the way we are currently teaching sex ed in America is toxic, let me give you a little more perspective. Some perspective. So out of our 50 states, only 22 states mandate sex education. So this means all the other states have the option to not even talk about it at all. Also, out of these 22 states, only 13 require you to be medically accurate. Let me say that again. Only 13 require you to be medically accurate. And this would never slide with anything else being taught. So why are we letting our country barely teach a subject that is part of everyone's lives and literally is a part of what makes life?
One quick second there.
Yes.
On when you say it the second time,
yeah.
I'd say that's just 26%. Like tell them the percentage.
Statistic.
Just 13. That's only 26% of the states.
That's only 26%?
Yeah.
I don't know math, so I'm like, that's right, sure. 26. I'm not going to fact check.
Just kind of to put that into perspective.
Percent of the states to give you perspective. Thank you. Thanks. Doing great. Wyatt, Ashley, he's good. Some perspective. I'm going to let this slide. Okay. 5 Okay.
You're good. Pick back up where you were. You got this.
I believe if we taught sex education more comprehensively, we could change not only the way people feel about sex, but also about themselves. I'm going to share a personal story that I experienced when I was in middle school and was being taught about sex in our science class. The program was called CPR, and no, we were not like resuscitating people. It stood for creating positive relationships. So a lady came in, you know what? So a lady came in with a bag of chocolate kisses. Hey, look, that all ties together. And gave one to each of us, like I did with you guys. And she said, if we waited and didn't eat them till the end of class, we would get a little present. Then she pulled out cups of clear liquid and had a couple volunteers come up and go around and fill each other's cups with their own liquid. And when they poured the liquid into a different cup, it changed color. And so I thought this was going to be like some cool science experiment. I thought like this was magic. But the lady informed us this was actually bad. She said, now that we have mixed all our liquids together, there is no way we can bring it back to pure, clear water. She went on and said, now no one will want to drink this water because it's contaminated and it's lost its value. She went on and explained how this symbolizes our virginity and that if we have sex before marriage, we'll get contaminated and our future spouse won't want to have sex with us. She then said, but if you do decide to save yourself before marriage, and then whipped out this mysterious liquid, and she starts pouring it into the one cup with all the different colors. She said, you won't be contaminated, and you and your partner can share your liquids without worry. And then the liquid turned the other liquid back to clear. Now, before I go on, I'm sorry for saying liquid so many times. That's very uncomfortable. Also, our little gift at the end, if we decided to wait and eat our kisses, we got a little piece of paper where we could write our names and pledge that we would not have sex before marriage. And I still have mine in my wallet to this day. Just kidding, I threw it away. That rhymes. That kind of bugs me that rhymes. But this style of teaching went on to even my high school career. Yeah. And it wasn't like a science experiment. It was more like a scare tactic where it went, here's a picture of gonorrhea on a penis. Don't have sex. Which is traumatizing, but also didn't teach me anything except for what gonorrhea looks like on a penis, which is useful, I guess. Now, I'm not expecting tools to be out here being like, here's some condoms, go crazy. Because I do believe abstinence does have so much value, and it is a decision me and others are choosing. I do think there's a value in sex, and sex has an impact on our emotions and feelings, and I don't think it should be taken lightly. But when we teach something where it only shows one side of perspective, we miss the whole picture. When we just teach abstinence only, the kids who have been assaulted or raped who hear a message like the one I heard in middle school will believe something is wrong with them, it was their fault, and that they have lost their value. Kids in middle school confused about their sexuality and thinking they might be gay might not even hear the word homosexuality in their classroom. The language and the way we say things impact how we feel. If we only use heteronormative language in the classroom, the kids with gay parents or the kids who are gay will think they aren't normal. There's actually only 8 states right now that are considering making laws that limits what you can say about homosexuality in schools. Also, it wasn't until college that I noticed people actually teaching what consent was. Consent is definitely something you should learn at a young age because it applies to everything in your life, but it definitely applies when you're learning about sex. Teaching only abstinence is not preparing people for the real world, and it's sending a damaging message and throwing real issues under the rug. Then I'll keep continuing, but also, I don't know. I'm so sweaty. 1 minute!
You're good. I'm sure she'll understand if we're a minute short. Would you know when this needs to be turned in by tonight? Do you
I just said before, like the speeches happen.
Okay.
I don't think there's a deadline.
Okay. I didn't know if I needed to turn it in tonight or if I could go over this in the morning, like find time. If I hit stop, it'll save, right? I don't want to lose this whole thing. Okay.
I'm crying.